Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our spoiler-free review for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. You are an Avenger? Have I killed you before? Hey there, my name is Nate, and this is our spoiler-free review for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Small and massive thanks to our friends at Marvel and Disney Plus Canada for giving us the opportunity to watch this movie early for review. If you're joining us for the first time, we are Geekcentric, a podcast focusing on the world of movies, TV shows, games, toys, and collectibles, and all things geek-centric. Now, I'm stoked to get into this one, but before we get to this review, I also want to let you know that, if you're like us and you love the world of Star Wars, we currently have our watch club for Star Wars: The Bad Batch, Season 2, with weekly breakdowns every single Wednesday. And if you've been infected with a passion for all things The Last of Us, we also have our weekly watch club for that series, which goes live right here on your podcast service of choice every single Sunday, right after the episode wraps at 10 p.m. Eastern. So go check those out and enjoy. But with that out of the way, let's get to this review. Joining me for this quantifiably quality quest into the queersome and quirky but quintessential quantum realm, he's got a jejunum made of jelly. He's Justin the Ligand Lawrence.
Yo, what's going on?
You know what a ligand is?
No, what is a ligand?
A ligand is an atom, ion, or molecule that donates or shares one or more of its electrons through a covalent bond with a central atom or ion.
Oh, that feels very quantum realm-esque.
I thought so. I literally just searched for your last name. I was like, L words science. That's what came up. Justin, how are you doing? We've seen the first movie of the MCU's Phase 5. You were at the red carpet Canadian premiere. How are you feeling after your trip to the quantum realm?
Feeling great, and yeah, it was a great time. Again, huge thanks to Marvel Studios Canada and Disney Studios Canada by extension for inviting me out to cover the event. It was really great, and we have our interviews out right now for you to enjoy. I sat down with Catherine Newton. Nate, you sat down with Peyton Reed, and we had some lovely conversation with them about this movie. So that's both available on YouTube at youtube.com/geekcentric and on podcast feeds, where on the podcast feed we talk a little bit more about that red carpet experience. We talk about breaking down some of that interview, but if you want to see the interviews and see our lovely faces, well, those are available on YouTube for you to enjoy. So,
I think to get the whole experience, you gotta check out both. I think it's probably the best way to do it.
Yeah. I think so. I totally think so. Maybe watch the interviews first, and they're short interviews, which is great, and they do have great tidbits of information.
You know what else is short and fulfilling with great tidbits? Anything from Baskin Robbins. And,
Yes.
This movie, we get a little bit more, we get some Baskin Robbins time. And I wanted to ask, I don't think that's a spoiler to say that there's Baskin Robbins in the movie, but...
oh, come on. It's part of Scott Lang's origin story,
right.
man.
Baskin
Robbins is part of it. So it kind of makes sense that we would see something Baskin Robbins featured here. I think it's actually in the trailer.
Is it okay? If it's in the trailer, then we're okay.
Employee of the month. Yeah, of course.
Yes.
Employee
of the century. That's it. What is your go-to Baskin Robbins right there?
Well, I got to say, I'm a sucker for anything chocolate chip cookie dough.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also a fan of strawberry cheesecake. I like the strawberry cheesecake as well. I know for my wife, she's a huge fan of the Very Berry strawberry, which, by the way, is the only name I know.
As like an official Baskin Robbins flavor.
Exactly. Very strawberry is pretty sure what it's called. Because when she was pregnant with my daughter, that's all she ever wanted. So I would have to go get like 1 liter tubs every like week, 2 weeks probably.
Yeah, they're still in the
freezer.
freezer.
Just down them.
Yeah.
No, they're actually all done.
They're all gone.
She's contemplating me. Yeah, exactly.
Getting more.
Yeah, man, she doesn't mess around when it comes to ice cream.
Dude, ice cream cake. Baskin Robbins ice cream cake, dude. Like the Oreo, like sort of, it's not even Oreo, but just like the cookie base on an ice cream cake that they do. don't tell me it's overrated, Justin. You're making that face where you're like, yeah, you're
it
being
is
the
overrated.
hipster that you
I
are.
like their cookie
Shut
pizza.
up.
You know the
No
pizza?
way.
You know the pizza?
The cookie pizza?
You know the ice cream pizza thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really nice because
Okay.
the ice cream to cookie ratio
Yeah.
is more appropriate.
No
than
way, dude.
I find like
Shut
the ice cream cakes are so gargantuan. Like they're
Dude.
just massive.
Dude, you listen. Then maybe like Ant-Man, you should learn how to grow in size or shrink in size. You could shrink the cake down to a little
Inside of a cake?
get inside of the cake. Oh my gosh! All right, well, listen, that's enough waffling. They probably had some really good waffle ice cream stuff there too. Anyways, let me get to the synopsis for this movie. And if you're listening to this, you probably already know. But listen, in the film, which officially again kicks off Phase 5 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, superhero partners Scott Lang and Hope Van Dyne return to continue their adventures as Ant-Man and the Wasp, together with Hope's parents Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne, as well as Scott's daughter Cassie Lang. The family finds themselves exploring the quantum realm, interacting with strange new creatures, and embarking on an adventure that will push them beyond the limits of what they thought was possible. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania stars Paul Rudd, Evangeline Lilly, Michael Douglas, Michelle Pfeiffer, Catherine Newton, and Jonathan Majors, with additional cast William Jackson Harper, Katie M. O'Brien, Randall Park, Corey Stoll, David Dastmalchian, and Bill Murray. The movie is directed by Peyton Reed and opens in theaters February 17th. Justin, let's get to this review. Let's talk about what worked, what didn't. We'll kind of go through it section by section. And I was thinking we could start off with the performances. I think the one we have to start off with, because I don't think he would let us not start off with, was Kang, Jonathan Majors. I mean, listen, if you were hoping that Jonathan Majors as Kang was everything and more that you wanted him to be, he was. He is outstanding in this movie. He ate up every single second he was on screen. And Justin, this was, I think I looked over and you were taking notes on a notepad. I was taking notes on a notepad. When we're invited to these screeners, obviously we can't have our phones out. And so, that's normally I like to take notes when I'm doing these reviews. And so we're scribbling our little notes in our notepad. And Justin, you can visibly see the notes on, like, you can see how my notes turn out every time Jonathan Majors was on screen, because they just get messier and messier because I couldn't look away. He's so mesmerizing. He has such a presence in this movie.
Yeah, I think he delivers a cunning, powerful performance as a time-traveling terrorist out on a quest of universal dominance. Like, honestly, Majors becomes this character.
Yeah.
And it's through his ability to just convey a variety of emotions, from empathy to just rage-fueled villainy. Much like Heath Ledger's Joker, every time Majors is on the screen, I was captivated by his performance. And, we've been talking a lot about this on our Watch Club for The Last of Us with all the performances. Jonathan Majors' acting without words at times is so profound. It's amazing to see moments when his face or eyes react. And you just realize that he is becoming this character, like, through the mental process. So, he doesn't hold back. He gives it his all in this performance. And, while we've seen He Who Remains as one of Kang's variants, this feels entirely different while also feeling very connected to the original introduction of Kang, if you will. He's more unhinged, and I feel like Jonathan Majors is out for glorious purpose to play this character and bring him to life on the big screen. He was incredible.
It's funny too, because you mentioned the Joker, and while I was like sort of gathering my notes for this review and I was looking up some stuff, like, I was trying to figure out, what was Kang's reasoning. And I think the cool thing, the scary part about it is that we for the most part, we get somewhat of an explanation, but it is that element of no. You know what? What's so cool and classic about this character is that he's just a straight up bad guy. He is just a straight up bad guy, and I know that sort of goes against some of the things we've been talking about of sort of needing to fully understand and be on the side. You know, we talk about Thanos and how it's like Thanos was right? Or Gore the God Butcher, and it's like, yeah, Gore's kind of right in some of his, he's not right about how he's doing it, but he's kind of right in his initial pursuit.
Killmonger as well.
Right,
Yeah,
Killmonger.
yeah.
But here with Kang, in a way, it's almost like his purpose is real clear. He wants to rule everything. And when I was looking it up in the comics, the main reasoning behind that is that his world is ending. And that's not a spoiler from this movie. That's a spoiler from the comics, I guess. But his world is ending, and so this is why he needs to sort of travel through it and conquer all the worlds. But again, I think if it wasn't for Jonathan Majors' performance in this role and what he was able to bring to it, this could have come off a little bit weaker in that translation. But for me, like, I just can't wait to see more Kang in the MCU.
Well, I think his motives and intent in this movie alone are very clear. His bigger goal, I think that's inevitably what we will come to realize in something like Kang Dynasty later, is what is Kang's big goal? Because, like, think about it. Like, with Thanos, we got sprinkles of him throughout the 4 phases up until Infinity, where he very much proves what he's out to do.
Mm-hmm.
And again, fans and those who follow the comics, they knew where it was all going, the Infinity Saga, so on and so forth. So it wasn't really that big of a surprise. But at the end of the day, it isn't until Infinity War that we fully grasp who this big threat is. I feel like the same thing is going to happen for Kang. We will get sprinklings of who he is at times, because as Jonathan Majors has said, he is going to be playing variations of Kang throughout different timelines, much like in the comics. So it's going to be exciting to see how that manifests itself throughout, the next phase 5 into Kang's Dynasty and of course in Secret Wars. Maybe by then he's not even the big baddie. Maybe someone else is by the time we get to Secret Wars. But definitely when we get up to Kang's Dynasty, I think we will have more of a clear, obvious reason to what Kang's big motive is outside of this movie.
Yeah, well, no, I think in terms of purpose, we do see a character that sort of grows even further into his purpose, and that's Scott Lang. And I want to talk about Paul Rudd. Just, dude, like, instant giggles, instant smiles. The moment he comes on screen, you cannot be in that theater and not be smiling. I think the movie's gotten bigger, but he's still the same Scott Lang. He's full dad mode in this movie. He's fueled by his love of Cassie in this movie, and that's evident in every interaction you see between him and Catherine Newton. And I think their chemistry is so palpable in this movie, and his comedic charm is up and down the movie as well. And I think there's some folks that sort of criticize this movie because it does stray away from the previous two, that it's not as comedic. I think it absolutely is as comedic. I thought it was hilarious. I actually don't remember laughing as much in at least in the second movie in comparison to this one. And yeah, dude, I just thought he really brought it. Paul Rudd is you just can't help but root for him throughout the entire movie. He's so fantastic.
Yeah, I think you said it best. I think as things around Ant-Man or Scott get bigger in terms of the scope of events, he is very much the same. He is the same hero that we met in the first film, who is fueled, like you said, by his love for his daughter, wanting to protect her, wanting to do better for her. And that continues here in this film and in the adventure that they have together. And yeah, I think, you look at the scope and the scale, and I think a lot of people have also been criticizing, well, like this seems like a really big event for Ant-Man, but I kind of like that, big event, small hero concept and what they're doing here. And while things, like you said, do get big, it's all about family. It's all about family. And it's all about the desire to protect those we love and keep them safe. We talk about it in The Last of Us. We've talked about it a lot. These are like fundamental things that audience members can connect with. And I think that, again, Scott Lang, Paul Rudd delivers on all fronts, from the humor to the action. And I don't know, he's very much the anchor that guides us through this story. And
learning that he can trust his daughter, I think, is something that he never thought he was capable of. And I think we also see, as a hero, he he grows to he grows in a way that he never thought he was capable of as well. Just in the sense of kind of, they're going up against this quantum threat here, and you just see how, he just adapts, and it's fantastic. And I think, like, the biggest thing though is, you're right, is throughout the movie, I still just wanted to hug him. I just wanted to, no matter what happened, I wanted to hug him. I just wanted him to call me Peanut. It was just, it's so lovely that, like, again, like you were saying, the movie is such this, like, epic scale movie, but we've got this really grounded and sort of small hero,
sort of heartfelt hero.
Yeah,
exactly.
And it's like, is that where the real power lies, right?
Exactly, and I think it does, and I think, again, by extension, his relationship with his daughter, played by Catherine Newton. This is a new iteration of Cassie Lang. I just love how, in comparison, her heart is just as huge as Scott. She's out to want to do good. She is motivated by the fact that her dad is an Avenger. You know what I mean? Like, she wants to do so much, and it's crazy to see sort of the trajectory. I know there's a shot in the trailer where we see her in jail. To think that that's how we were introduced to Scott Lang, and her following those familial paths, if you will. It's the irony of it, and when you unravel who she is and how she is very much Ant-Man, as he was in the first movie, as Scott Lang was, where he's figuring it out. But she's figuring it out, though, in a quantum realm against a massive threat, because the quantum realm is the world, Kang is the threat, right? Mm-hmm. And because the threat really isn't the quantum realm, it's the fact that they've been sucked into it. And I think that's, again, she's getting her bearings. And Catherine Newton delivers such a sincere, very heartwarming, authentic performance that, like you said, coupled that with Paul Rudd and their relationship on screen between Scott and Cassie, it feels like how it was in the other two movies. They're friends. I think about those times in the past movies when they were just talking and sharing with each other their feelings. And now Scott has to navigate those behaviors and those feelings of, like, she's my daughter, I have to protect her. But so much time has passed. Right? So much time has passed, and for him, he has to realize that she's growing up, and she's still not that, I guess when we left her, it was probably like 6 to 8 years old little girl that he left when he fell into the quantum realm so many years ago. So yeah, bravo job from Catherine Newton. She did a great job as Cassie. I'm excited to see more of her.
Well, this is her origin story, right? And I think the comedic timing, her effervescence on screen, and the fact that she can comedically, take to the chat, like, she is up there on screen with Paul Rudd.
She's bouncing off,
and they are sparring back and forth, and she's funny and she's quirky. She's a big dork like her dad in this movie, she is the heart of the movie. I'm stoked that Catherine Newton was brought on as the new Cassie. No offense to the other Cassies, I'm sure they would have been
I take
great
offense to
chance.
that. I take massive offense to that. They were all fantastic.
No,
they deserve
sure.
their time to do this. No,
that's wait.
I'm
so
just kidding. I'm totally kidding.
You're gonna
I'm totally kidding. Like, I don't understand why people are so touchy or sensitive about this recasting of Cassie Lang. If anything, if they had decided that this was the trajectory before Endgame, they probably would have cast Catherine Newton. Yeah. Right? But I don't think they really knew at the time what was going to happen. And I think, as things kind of flourished, it was like, oh, we're going to need to involve her a little bit more. So, and I don't even think of Endgame Cassie Lang. In Endgame, Cassie Lang was just, this adult version of Cassie Lang was just a means for us to understand how much time has passed and what that relationship is going to look like for Scott and Cassie moving forward. But other than that, she wasn't integral. She was just there for a second and left. When I think of Cassie Lang, I think of 6-year-old Cassie Lang, who was so loving and just looked up to her dad, and, like, connecting that to this movie and to this version of Cassie Lang. Catherine Newton did such a great job. She nailed it.
Now, I did want to kind of bring up, because obviously this movie is called Ant-Man and the Wasp. And Evangeline Lilly as Hope Van Dyne. I think this was another example on top of the second movie of just how capable Hope is. I think, she does get to kick a lot of ass in this movie. But I did feel, I couldn't help but feel like she was a little bit more lost in the background. She was kind of the vessel for helping us understand her mom's past in the quantum realm. And so, as much as this is, again, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, I didn't feel as though there was much emphasis on her character as there could have been, because she is important to the plot enough to help us learn about Janet, right? But she's there to support Scott. She loves him. I completely understand that. In an interview, Evangeline Lilly said it's about time Wasp gets a standalone project. I agree. I actually think that would be a really, really great idea for the character.
She said movie. She said movie. Let's
I will. Okay,
it.
I won't mince her words.
I would
but
not
I would
say movie though.
I would say project, and I'll leave that up to
Project.
Marvel to decide how they'd want to go about doing it. But I don't think we've explored that character enough, and I think the second movie was almost her origin story, right? Where this one is Cassie's. Second one was hers, and I don't know. I just feel like I think the if the decision was to scale back and say, well, listen, we're doing a lot in this movie, so we can't give all of these characters as much time to shine, and if they did give us that, they gave the time to Catherine Newton as Cassie Lang, I'm okay with it because of what we got. I guess the part that's just confusing for me is she is a title character, and it did feel like they sort of lost her in the mix.
Well, they're a team.
Yeah.
They're both in this story together on opposite ends, I think. I think the thing to take into consideration is that Hope's story matters in relation to her father and her mother in this movie.
Right.
Like the three of them have their own story together, and it is about talking about the family trauma. You know what I mean? Like the idea of loss and what they're trying to fix and things being broken. That is their subtext story. While we have Scott, Cassie, the whole Kang adventure, if you will, and they intersect. Janet, who's played by Michelle Pfeiffer, we'll get to her in a second, but in terms of Hope, I agree with you. I think that her character was a little bit more sidelined, and I do think that it would be great to explore who Hope is at this point in a series. Give me a 6-episode series, half-hour episodes that allow us to explore this character. Because I think at the end of the day, that's where solo projects are going to work best in some instances, because we can spend a little bit more time with these characters rather than simply just, giving us a movie that feels sort of rushed and half sort of baked, if you will. But with so much going on, it makes sense that they would tie Hope's story back to her family and rebuilding what had been lost, because at the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp, we just see them reconnecting. We don't know what has happened over that time. They were blipped for 5 years as well, right? Like there's so much that's happened to them that they really haven't probably had the time to be a family. So they need to work their shit out. So this adventure allows that for them as a whole, because Michael Douglas is great as always. Always
he's
the
Michael
smart
Douglas,
one, always the one
in this movie.
Yeah, man. He didn't have to do much, and he still stood out. He was still comedic. He was still very the smart guy that you would expect from Hank. And out of all of the three of them, I think Michelle Pfeiffer's character Janet Van Dyne is absolutely fantastic. She's been a part of these stories since the first Ant-Man, right? And in Ant-Man and the Wasp was her, served as her sort of live action introduction. Quantumania is a chance to really tell her story. And, again, much like matching with Jonathan Majors, Michelle Pfeiffer is outstanding as she ranges her acting from feeling very emotive. She's scared. She's dealing with like this internal trauma while also being incredibly cunning and smart, and then also leaning into her action scenes. Like she's just as badass as Hope, right? And you see where Hope gets it from, right?
Absolutely.
And that's a really nice sort of connectivity. And by far, this movie, I think Evangeline Lilly and Michelle Pfeiffer, perfect casting as a mother-daughter. They look like they look
it works.
very, very similar with the cheekbones and stuff like that. Like I think that it's a really great matching. And to hear Kevin Feige say that they always wanted Michelle Pfeiffer to play Janet if they could explore that character, it shows this is why. So she did such a great job.
And we do get to see sort of that parallel between Scott and his daughter and Janet and her daughter of that sort of proud parent. So I get it. I get that as well. I do think Michelle Pfeiffer was really fantastic in the movie. And again, I think they had a lot to explain with her character, and I'll talk a little bit about that when we kind of get to the narrative. But just before we do it, just a few sort of other, I guess, additional cast. I want to just quickly shout out Corey Stoll. Corey Stoll as MODOK. I cannot believe that not only did we get MODOK in the MCU, but we got MODOK the way you would expect to see MODOK. So many other directors would have cowered away and given us a robot MODOK, or they would have given us, like a CGI alien MODOK. But no, Peyton Reed said, let's just take Corey Stoll's face and stretch it real big. And I could not stop laughing every time he was on screen, to the point where, like, we're sitting in this theater with a bunch of other critics, and Justin, like, you told me, like, there's just this audible...
and I were just...
laugh as soon as he's on screen.
Yeah, we both audibly laughed when the helmet revealed, because we knew that it was going to be something. And I think, again, when we talk about MODOK, and I know his character is taken seriously to a certain degree in the comics,
sure,
and I'm sure Darcy could really go into it, but I know that there is a tongue-in-cheek sort of comedy that has evolved with his character because of the sort of obscurity of how he looks and how bizarre his design. It is, but they've kept him around, and I think that obviously in the quantum realm makes the most sense to introduce MODOK. They had fun with it. They weren't trying to, let's take it seriously. Let's make MODOK matter. It was, let's have fun with it and, play into the jokes, have the characters play into the jokes in and around it. That helped a lot with making, us comfortable with seeing MODOK in this movie, in live action. And
Corey Stoll is having so much fun in this role, which is always so much fun to see, right? Again, based on his first character in the movies, to see him there and then to see him in this, just chomping it up, it's so much fun. And I think the interesting thing is, yes, his design is ridiculous, but when you compare that to some of the other characters in the quantum realm, he actually looks somewhat normal, which is the funniest part. Bill Murray as Lord Krylar. I will just quickly say I was really happy to see Bill Murray in this movie, but it is very much a guest role. Don't go in expecting main character here. He serves his purpose as Bill Murray in such a Bill Murray way. Would I have wanted more of him? Sure, because he's freaking Bill Murray. But I don't know. I think he's awesome. I think there's only so much time in this movie, and for what we got, it was lovely.
Yeah, and we're talking about not having him enough time with Hope. You know what I mean?
I know, and then I want to give it to Bill Murray.
yeah, you want to give more time to Bill Murray, but I think he was serviceable. I was under the impression the role that he was in the movie was exactly as you're mentioning. It's not a leading role; it's a smaller role, and just very cameo-esque, if you will. So it worked, and the character that he plays is very fitting. Like you said, it's very fitting.
Last one I want to shout out, and then we're gonna keep going here. But David Dastmalchian plays a character named Veb. I'm not going to tell you anything about Veb. Just look out for Veb, the MVP in my mind of the additional cast. He will live on in my heart forever. I hope to see him again. It's honestly, when you see Veb in this movie, it's so funny and so original. Well, that's so good.
And like that's what's kind of funny when people are online with their reactions, is that there's not much humor. Like, I found myself laughing a lot. I found myself laughing a lot. Maybe I wasn't supposed to be laughing at those moments, but I don't know. Like I found myself really chuckling, and I was actually surprised that as bold and serious as the threat has gone, and how epic this movie is, it still has a level of humor and having fun with itself. And again, we talked about MODOK, and David Dastmalchian is hilarious in this movie, and
probably one of the best representations of the quantum realm. So Corey Stollface aside, let's talk about the visuals here. I think the quantum realm looked, honestly, I think it looked great. And especially in IMAX, I think seeing the orange and purple colors filling the screen really helps to immerse you in this honestly insane world. And I think again, we're going to have the army of trolls are coming from the internet, Justin. The army of visual effects trolls are coming to, Marvel sucks with their visuals, and they're going to come out and they're going to be upset. But I'm going to tell you right now, in my mind, I actually really found it engrossing how it didn't look entirely realistic. We're talking about something that is not of our interpretation of our own existence.
It's quantifiable. It's the
right?
quantum
It's
realm.
the quantum realm. Make it look coated glossy for all I care. I don't care that it looks not real, because it's not. And I think there's an element to that actually really works in this movie. And you'll have people say, well, that's such an MCU apologist answer, but I'm sorry, it worked for me. I don't know if it worked for you.
It did. It totally worked for me.
Yeah.
I think, the word I would use is definitely going to be a buzzword that's going to be used to describe the quantum realm, and that is weird. And I mean that as a compliment. It is a psychedelic trip that feels more Rick and Morty, and even like Dr. Zeus style, if you will.
Yeah.
It has its own personality, and it's bizarre. And I just love that it's really Marvel taking a big swing to define the quantum realm with a unique look that's inherently itself and unlike anything we've seen in the MCU to date.
Sure.
But that said, like you said, those trolls, I do think they will have a huge topic of conversation around this movie, not only because of the strange, weird look, but because of also how much time we're spending in this CGI world. And that might not work for everyone, given the fact that Ant-Man and the Wasp were both very grounded movies with very street-level heroes. So, like you said, personally, I think it did work. It is unlike anything we've seen, but it also delivers the promise from the first two movies. It's actually showing us the quantum realm. It's been a place discussed and hinted at, and was a plot device that allowed them to achieve time travel in Endgame. So I think it's deserving that in this third Ant-Man movie, we dive in even deeper and actually get to experience what is the quantum realm. So it's earned, and it feels like it needs to be of its own thing.
Now, I wanted to touch upon, along with the visuals, costume design and sort of world building. And I think a lot of people are saying that this is Peyton Reed's Star Wars. And I will say, I did find that there were a lot of elements borrowed from Star Wars, with everything from alien design, costume design. There's like faceless stormtrooper-like characters, giant holograms. There's a bar scene. There's even language used, like the word USA, which I'm sure I've heard a Gungan or a Hutt say before in a galaxy far, far away. And I think there's a lot of people that are looking at that as a negative. I don't see it that way. I see it as a positive, because here's the thing. As much as there is borrowed, there are also so many unique and diverse elements to the quantum realm that make it look and feel like nothing we've seen before. And I think, especially, as you were saying, in a live-action, big-budget superhero movie, if you want to take your Star Wars and mix it with my MCU, that's chocolate and peanut butter. And I know you're allergic to peanuts, Justin, but trust me, it worked. It works.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I don't think calling out the fact that, this is very Star Wars inspired, that's not an insult. And especially given the fact that, Peyton Reed single-handedly directed the best Mandalorian episode with Luke Skywalker.
Right.
Best episode featuring Luke Skywalker.
The best Luke Skywalker moment, I might even go so far.
Yes,
be so bold.
Exactly.
As to say,
bold.
Yeah.
Yes, you should be bold. Lean into that. But again, it's entirely a compliment than it is an insult. But I think people are looking at that as like, it's his Star Wars. So there, maybe it sends off a negative connotation for some people, that it's like, oh, is that a good thing? It is a good thing. I think it helps, as you said, build out the world of what the quantum realm is and how it exists, and what we see is very unique while also feeling very inspired. I think that's like Remix at its best. We see it all the time in everything we watch.
Well, we're in an era where MCU fans are completely comfortable, not just, watching a talking raccoon and a sentient tree, but crying over them, right? So, yeah, let's get weird. Let's get as weird as we possibly can. And I think that's Peyton Reed's strategy, was to give the superhero moments that we'd expect, right? To borrow from things that we love and adore, as I'm sure there's a lot of crossover between those two worlds, but then to also give us something new, something strange that we never knew that we'd want. And I do think that that's, again, and I'm going to pull him back, but it's all summed up in the character of Veb. When you see Veb, trust me, he's awesome. But Justin, before we go even any further, though, I also wanted to mention, the action in this movie. There's some fantastic fighting scenes. I think and again, we're not going to spoil anything in detail because obviously we want you to experience these moments. But I will say, anytime you've got Scott and Cassie fighting alongside each other, I thought just works so well. I love that he's still a dad. Even in these action moments, he can't stop. He can't help himself from sort of teaching her new things. And so, again, I think even just that element really is kind of what we're talking about of like this, it's an action moment, but still has that heart. And I think that's like Ant-Man in itself, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's the poetic beauty of seeing Cassie and Scott kick butt together. I think that... you get the ant-sized action a lot throughout this movie, which is great. It's done masterfully. But what I was really looking forward to based on the trailers was what looked to be a very heavy-handed hand-to-hand combat with Ant-Man and Kang. And again, not revealing anything, but that is a fantastic action choreography. It is so well done, and probably... as we've talked about Jonathan Majors delivering such a performance from his emotions and his persona, here is where we get to see the physicality of his character. And man, given that this is going to be a big year for him with movies, I know he has obviously Creed 3 coming out. I think the other one's called Magazine Dreams. I might be wrong of that. There's a lot. This is going to be his year, and we know we're going to see probably more of him throughout the MCU as we get through phase 5. But I'm excited to see the level of action that he is going to bring when he faces off against other heroes other than Ant-Man. And shout out to Paul Rudd for leaning into it. It had me like adjusting myself in the seat as I was watching it. Like I was like not necessarily uncomfortable, but I was just like, wow, this is more intense than you would expect for Ant-Man, because he's just going to shrink and do his stuff, but it stays very one-on-one. It's really well done.
Yeah, really fantastic. And there's some great action set pieces, and there's some great ways that they approach action that I promise you will not think of, you'll not expect. And that goes back to sort of Peyton Reed's commitment to give you the heightened action that you're looking for, but in a way that, again, it's new, it's exciting, it's cool, and just dude, honestly, like so many of those moments, I was just like, please tell me we get to come back to the quantum realm at some point. I would really love that. But yeah, man, let's get to the kind of our final section here before we get to our overall review or rating here. I want to talk about the story, the narrative, and again, we are spoiler free. As much as these things can be spoiler-free, so just keep in mind we're not going to be giving you detailed aspects about the story. This is more along the lines of sort of our overall impressions and feelings of the story. And I think, for me, the story, for the most part, works well. I think it does a great job at catching us up to speed as to what's been going on since the last time that we saw Scott. I think the movie moves... getting us to its first major moment in 15 minutes, I think is fantastic. But I did find, and we talked about this as soon as we walked out, Justin, that it did feel like it took a bit of a dip in the middle, a little bit of an expositional dump, as I like to call it. And I know that's not uncommon for these origin style movies, and it's kind of weird calling this an origin style movie. Hear me out. I know it's the third movie, but it is an origin style. It's an origin for Cassie, it's an origin for Janet, and it's an origin for Kang. It's an origin for the quantum realm. And when you have so much of this world and this to set up, you're catching us up on a character from 30 years. I think it's a lot. It's a lot to do, and it's really tough to handle. But I think overall, as much as it is really difficult, and I do think it gets really messy, when you mentioned family, this is very much from a narrative standpoint, an Ant-Man movie, and in its core, family,
it's a
fatherhood,
family
comedic heist elements are brought into this movie. And then there's
Strange World,
right? And then there's Strange World. This is a better Strange World than Strange World. But I think they add an element of sort of this. I think if there's anything added, outside of the original movies, the first two movies, is this David versus Goliath aspect that does feel completely earned throughout the movie and at this point in Ant-Man or Scott Lang's life. So I think the only part that didn't really work though was the aspect of the showing and telling, and sort of parts where they split this excellent cast up. To me, did feel a little bit too filler. I would have preferred that we got to see them.
It drew out the time.
It drew out the time, and I don't think that was a good idea. I think it was a bad idea, because I didn't find that those moments resonated with me as much as I think they might have wanted to or should have, right? Because even you talking, Justin, about the idea of like a broken family relationship between Hope and her mom and dad. Dude, I hear you, and I sort of got that, but that did not hit for me as hard as the other side.
For sure. Yeah, no, I think that what you're saying though is absolutely true. I think the problem with the story is actually splitting them up. Like, you could have handled it all together with them being together the entire time, right? And in some ways, by splitting them up, as we were mentioning, it draws out the story a lot more. So that's where you get that dump, that expositional dump where you're learning about things from two sides of the adventure,
right?
And that is very Star Wars in some ways.
Sure.
You're splitting up your heroes.
Yeah.
Very Empire, very in that style. So I think that taking that trope feels overly simplistic, but at the same time, I think the story is overly simplistic. It to your point, it's more about serving as an origin story for the quantum realm, for for Cassie, and for, most importantly, Kang and Phase 5 and what it's really meant to do. So, that's at the center of it. And you're right, it is a David and Goliath level story. The smallest hero, the hero that's been, featured as the most grounded street level style, facing a time bending threat. But all of this is elevated from just outstanding performances though, as well. I think a lot of people have said it feels a bit hollow and self-serving to a larger story, but I think the same could be said about the last movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp. It's fun at times, but the point of Ant-Man 2 is really just to introduce and set up the quantum realm as a means to undo the events in Infinity War. It doesn't really do much other than that and show the importance of the quantum realm. Here we're actually getting into it. So yeah, I think the story, while it deviates, it still feels holistically an Ant-Man story because it keeps it still grounded on the characters and the family aspect that's grounded. It's just decide to split it up rather than keep it together to tell their stories.
At no point in time did I feel like it took me too far out of the movie. I was still enjoying myself the entire time. I had a blast with the world building, smiling, laughing the entire time. And then there was moments where I was enamored, with Kang when I was supposed to be, right? And afraid when I was supposed to be. And I think it's just really tricky for a movie with a 2-hour runtime and the expectations that this one has as the quote kickoff to Phase 5, right? To manage this many characters, this many plot lines. So I think they could have scaled it back to give more weight to these characters on a more individual basis. I'm not a writer, so I'm not gonna know the exact process as to how, but we have seen it done better with ensemble movies in the past.
Sure. I think scaled back though means you'd have to remove stories, right?
Sure.
I think scaled back would have to be like you remove aspects of it. I think to your point, as you were saying, it's meant to do so much as the kickoff to Phase 5. But for me, when I'm looking at this, the only part of that is Kang. Do you know what I mean? The quantum realm and everything else in and around it is the mechanism of how we discover the real kickoff to Phase 5, right? The quantum realm is going to matter and it's going to be important as we get through more and more movies, but at this moment it's more of like, here's an introduction to it, right? But here's what Phase 5 is really going to bring you is Jonathan Majors as this, cunning friggin' villain. He's ruthless.
Let's get to our final thoughts here. We're going to be rating it on a scale of 1 to 5 ants. That's all I got. It's just 1 to 5 ants. Justin, what are your final thoughts, and what would you give this on a score of 1 to 5 ants?
Well, I know this has Ant-Man and the Wasp in its title, but come on, like I was saying, this is a Kang movie through and through, which shouldn't be much of a surprise. Leading up to the release of this film, it was highly anticipated that this would be a Kang film as much as it is an Ant-Man film. When we think of something like The Dark Knight, it is a Batman movie, but it's actually a Joker movie. So it's like, it's kind of to be expected.
Yeah.
And I'm actually surprised at how much they were able to keep the balance of both, keeping some of the familial quality, the lighthearted humor that we know and love from Ant-Man, while also giving us epic scope. Jonathan Majors just steals every scene he's in. He's wickedly intense. His performance is affirming that Kang is the new threat and is the kickoff to Phase 5. It's a wild and weird trip into the quantum realm, as we discussed, which is a compliment. And the movie takes big swings at being imaginative, with its world-building elements, and elevates to a Star Wars comparison. I think that's a compliment, like we were saying before. The adventure for the heroes feels earned after 2 films. And more or less, those other films felt like a breath of fresh air before another massive story in the MCU. Here, this movie is the massive story, with an epic adventure pitting the tiniest hero against a conqueror and the biggest threat known to the existence of time in the MCU. Again, not everything lands, and there is a bit of a dip.
And I know a lot of people are going to have things to say about MODOK and if the CGI worked and so on and so forth. But in my opinion,
it still nails the laughs. It nails the heart. It's intentive.
And overall,
it's an enjoyable time. And it's just bizarre quantum realm stuff. So I'm giving this movie 4 out of 5 ants.
I love it. Kang says the one thing he can give Scott is time. And I think time is this movie's only enemy. I think, again, they are trying to do a lot with not a lot of time. That said, like you were saying, Justin, excellent performances from this cast. Their chemistry when they do share the screen just completely raises this movie up for me, along with its imaginative as well as sometimes borrowed world building, which I'm okay with. And then we have Jonathan Majors.
Well, why'd you use the word borrowed?
Borrowed, dude. It's okay. Borrow it. Honestly, you can borrow it anytime you want. You got to give it back. But definitely borrow it. And Jonathan Majors, again, we can't say more. He's just maniacal. He's Kang the Conqueror. I love the fake reviews that were coming out on Twitter for this movie where it's just like, Jonathan Majors is Kang.
Majors is Kang.
Well, yeah, he is.
This is obviously a movie.
So good. But yeah, despite some of the messiness that I mentioned, this movie does still find a way to give us more than a satisfactory tease of what's to expect from that character. I've given up, Justin, a long time ago. I think pretty much after the first movie that happened after Endgame, of comparing these movies to their peak MCU saga-ending films. That's what people need to stop doing. Is that we're talking about a saga-ending film. Not a phase beginning film, a saga ending film.
Are you talking
of Endgame?
Are you talking about fans on the internet?
And Infinity War. I'm just talking about in general, dude. MCU is just, fandom's gotten a little bit ridiculous, and I think the idea is, if you give up the idea that not every single movie is going to be your Endgame and Infinity War, you're going to enjoy these movies a lot more. And I get that people are going into higher expectations because this is the beginning of a new phase, but this is just the beginning, and I really can't wait to see what's next. And I think if the intention for this movie was again to give us an Ant-Man movie with a side of Kang tease, this really worked. This was delicious. That actually sounds like a really good Baskin-Robbins flavor, if you get my drift. But yeah, even though I see some criticisms within it. And again, I mentioned it was a little messy. I had such a good time. I had too much of a good time to give it any less than 4 out of 5 ants. But that is it We hope you enjoyed this spoiler-free review for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And if you did, make sure to subscribe to us wherever you like to listen to podcasts. And if you want to write into the show with your thoughts on this movie or any of the movies or shows we cover, well, I'm going to use my my ant communicator to get a signal out to Justin all the way in the quantum realm to let you know how you can reach us.
Well, they can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Or they can reach out to us on Twitter at geekcentricyt or on Instagram at wearegeekcentric.
Yeah, if you guys didn't know, like, Justin is actually a really smart ant that I've trained and taught. And so it's just a filter. Whenever you see him on YouTube, it's actually just a filter. He's really just a giant ant. Keep in mind, we also have a ton of other great episodes covering the latest in movies and TV shows and games, including our spoiler-free review for the Apple TV Plus original series Shrinking. We also have some interviews from the cast and crew of Ant-Man, like Justin mentioned earlier, with Catherine Newton, who plays Cassie, as well as I had a chance to talk to Peyton Reed, the director of the Ant-Man trilogy. So again, go check out those interviews. They're already out on podcast services. They're out on our YouTube at youtube.com/geekcentric. And we're also on TikTok now, at We Are Geekcentric on TikTok. We got some great clips that Justin has been putting together, so definitely go check those out. We got some stuff on there probably by now that was maybe a little bit earlier from our previous interviews. So if you're like, I only have a minute to spend looking at your face, you can go on TikTok and enjoy that, and then maybe check out the full interviews on YouTube. Justin, thank you so much for joining me for this, I guess, not really ant-sized review. And as we say, love ya.
Peace.